Hi, my name is Alexis Goldsman. I have experimented with religions for at least 16 years, and on this video I'm gonna tell you how to take advantage of what is useful in your religion so you can protect yourself. If you're an atheist or too skeptical and thus you're not willing to learn anything about spirituality, this presentation is not for you. Every day we are bombarded with news of people suffering this or that tragedy, being a victim of crimes, bullying, plagues, natural disasters, wars, terrorism, etc. So, the press is the main entity destined to make you live in fear because the governing elite wants you to be perpetually afraid so they can control you better. Notice how they are always stressing that it can happen to you. But no, you do not necessarily have to become a victim of anything or anyone. You may read the news anyway, of course, to know what is going on, but if you are a little spiritually awake, you can see the news from the point of view of someone who is willing to help other people in distress, instead of believing that you are vulnerable to all dangers. Let's see these two guys, for example. Of course, I don't want you to become like them. I'm just putting them here as two examples of people who undoubtedly knew something that most people don't. Hitler survived more than 42 assassination attempts. Fidel survived 638 attempts in his life, so how is this possible? Where is that luck coming from? Well, they created their own luck. Those of the governing elite know how to protect themselves, and it's not about hiring more bodyguards. While the mainstream science that the elite helps to finance tells us there is no proof of anything spiritual, those who rule the world perform pagan rituals and consult witches and astrologers, etc. Take into account the current dictator Maduro from Venezuela, for example. He's a friend of witches. Also, many members of the elite are Masons. Being a Mason itself is not evil. Masonry is a sort of college where you acquire spiritual knowledge. Now, how that knowledge is applied depends on each Mason. But my point is, those who govern the world believe spirituality to be worthwhile, and for very good reasons. So, let's see what spiritual protection is about. Every religion has lots of lies, but also its truths. The problem is, most people either reject everything religious and spiritual altogether, or becomes fanatical and buys the whole package of their religion. Both extremes are useless. Of course, separating the wheat from the chaff in a religion might take you years. That's why I've made this video to teach you what I've found useful, at least within the protection topic. There are powerful and superior beings waiting for us to ask them for protection. The problem is, we don't see them because they live in other planes, levels, dimensions, or however you want to call them. That's why most people don't believe in them. But these superior beings don't intervene unless they are called. A recurrent question of atheists is why God doesn't intervene to stop all of the world's evils. Well, divine beings don't come to help unless you call them, and it is like that for a matter of free will. If you don't call them, they interpret that you chose to live through a bad experience to learn something. In rare occasions, a divine being may intervene without your request, but only when there is no doubt you wanted to be helped in the first place. All religions have protectors. Some of them may be more helpful than others, but all religions and belief systems have them, and all of them are real. Besides, spiritual protection is something relatively easy to get, unlike other benefits like health or money. That is because you have to be protected while you are struggling to achieve your goals. Otherwise, you won't be able to concentrate your efforts in getting what you want if you are constantly being attacked by someone or something. And you can also protect yourself by not depending on any deity but your own spirit. Although this is hard and it's not for everyone. I'll talk about that topic later in this video. Now, on the levels of the universe, you may call them planes, dimensions, realities. They have many names. Anyway, we live now in the physical plane, and every plane interpenetrates the others. For example, as we see here on this drawing, the astral plane interpenetrates the physical dimension. But we see reality with the physical senses, so when you call a divine protector, you cannot normally see him, but he can see everything that exists in the physical plane. A few people are clairvoyant, so they can see what's going on in other dimensions, but as you know, that's not common. There are 108 planes, subdivided in 9 levels each. The border, the limit of the physical plane, is at the orbit of Saturn. So you see, this system of planes is huge. I know this because it was told to me by a friend when we had a conversation in the astral plane. So when the Divine Protector comes, you may not see him or her, but it is there, and he or she has the power to intervene and change your reality in the physical plane for the better. I'll be telling you now what you can do in different religions to protect yourself. And I'll start with Christianity. In this path, of course, you can ask for the protection of archangels, especially Archangel Michael. Here I give you a suggested prayer. Lord Jesus, please send me your Archangel Michael to protect me today in a good way. Thank you. Amen. You have to repeat your request 3 times. This serves as a sign that you're really praying and not just talking about Jesus or the archangels. Repeating your prayer is a sign that you are confirming it. Always ask to be protected in a good way, otherwise the energy of Michael might make some people afraid of you. And say thank you, even if you didn't receive anything yet. It's a sign you recognize the free help you will get. You may say other prayers if you wish. You may simply talk to Jesus and the archangels. They are extremely intelligent and they know every single thing about you, so it's not like they're going to ignore you just because you got some word wrong in a prayer. If you are in an emergency situation, you can just repeat Michael 3 times and the archangel will come. And you have to pray for protection every day for the rest of your life while you are a Christian. You know, Christianity is just like any other devotional path. You have to establish a relationship with your God to obtain any benefits. It's not just about repeating a magical prayer and getting a result. And it's also important, especially on this path, that you convince yourself that you deserve to be protected. You're not a miserable sinner. You're not a criminal. You are a devotee. Even if you're not as compassionate as you were expected, even if you're not as saintly as you were convinced you ought to be, you do not deserve to be bullied, stolen, murdered, raped, etc. You deserve protection. When I tried Christianity a few years ago, I wasn't even baptized, and Michael protected me anyway. On 2 occasions, for example, he saved me from a thief. In the first one, I got out unharmed, and in the second one, I even saved my cell phone from being stolen. You may say you don't have enough faith, so you may ask Jesus for proof that he exists. He will not be offended by it, and if you ask for protection to Archangel Michael, he is a good teacher and he will feel that he is with you or you are with his subordinate angels. As I've said before, this is a devotional path, so you have to maintain faith in Jesus and a good relationship with him. There are actually 2 rules, 2 real commandments that Jesus expects you to fulfill if you want to be with him. Don't damage innocent people, or even think about it, and don't be sadistic with the people who did you harm, with the bad guys. The idea is not ever to be sadistic or having a sadistic way of thinking. For example, if someone steals your cell phone, just get the cell phone back and call the police, but don't burn the thief alive. So you may want justice, but don't be overly cruel with the bad guys. And this rule is difficult to fulfill, especially if you hate the bad guy very much. And almost the same goes for Judaism and Islam. Both Jews and Muslims can also ask for the protection of Archangel Michael, but of course Jews would call on Hashem, and Muslims would call Allah instead of Jesus. Let's go on to Buddhism. The first thing you've got to do to be protected on this path is to take refuge every day in the 3 jewels, Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha, 3 times after getting out of bed and 3 times before sleep. This is a must to get the help of bodhisattvas. Taking refuge is a sign that you are committed to the path. My experience indicates it is much harder to get something from bodhisattvas if you don't take refuge, so take refuge every single day of your life. You should also ask every day for the protection of bodhisattvas such as Vajrapani, Vajrasattva, and Tara. Vajrapani is the protector aspect of Vajrasattva, which is a purifier bodhisattva. He is known by other names such as Mahastamaprapta and Seishi in Japan. Tara is a very famous bodhisattva with many emanations that is called for much more than protection. Here I give you some protection mantras, which you have to repeat at least 3 times for the bodhisattva to come. Om Vajrapani Ahum or Hung. Om Vajrasattva Hum, mainly for purification. Om Tare Tutare Ture Svaha. Om Ahum, which is the mantra of all Buddhas. And there are many others. There is also an important concept in Buddhism. If you have security in your mind, you'll also have it in your life. Really, if you have anything in your mind, you'll also have it sooner or later in your life. There is a correspondence between what happens in your mind, conscious and subconscious, with what happens in your life. So, take that into account if you want to be safe. What bodhisattvas do, and really what all deities do, is changing your mind so you have security in your life as a result. Now about Hinduism. This religion is very deep, very complete. It has many philosophies, traditions, schools, deities, etc. I was actually left very disappointed with Occidental paths after studying and practicing Vaishnava Hinduism. So, if you don't mind concentrating yourself every day in something belonging to the country of India, this is one of the very best paths available. In fact, Buddhism derives from Hinduism, and many people even believe the Buddha to be one of the avatars of Vishnu. I had many experiences on this path, some of them related to protection. My experience at least indicates you should make an altar, and a nice one if possible. Meditating with mantras of Hindu deities without a proper altar to the deity in question is a lack of respect, so take that into account. Here I leave you some protection mantras I tried. These actually are more than protection mantras, and depending on your practice, you could also get a level of enlightenment with them. Om Dum Durgaye Namaha, Om Krim Kalikaye Namaha, Om Narasimhaye Namaha, Om Hum Hanumate Namaha, Om Sharavana Bhavaya Namaha, Sita Rama, and the Gayatri mantras. Of course, these are just examples, and if you are into some particular school of Hinduism, some mantras are more suited to that particular sampradaya than others. So, if you are a strict Vaishnava, maybe you won't repeat a Durga mantra, but a Narasimha mantra to protect yourself. Beware Occidentals, especially with the Gayatri mantras. They raise a lot of energy and they may cause disagreeable effects. During my practice, I realized as Occidentals in general are not prepared to understand and withstand the energy of some Oriental practices. With that said, let's go on to Taoism. This is a difficult path sometimes because most of the valuable information is either in Chinese or it's very basic. Most commonly called protector in Taoism is Guangkung or Guangong. He was a real human general that died and became a protector deity, present in most Taoist temples. You can also call the white tiger Bai Hu, the green dragon Qinglong, or simply repeat some affirmation like, I am always safe. I suspect the white tiger and green dragon are not deities but possibly archetypes of the Tao itself. You may also call on bodhisattvas while on this path, just like in Buddhism. My best protection experience was with bodhisattvas and the green dragon. To ask for protection from the Tao itself worked for me on a couple of occasions, so I believe it's not entirely true that the source of the universe is just impersonal. Now, let's go on to paganism and shamanism. These are growing religions nowadays, and what most pagans actually do when they get started is learning how to protect themselves. In a way, I'm going to share what I know that it works on these paths. In Wicca, you may ask the goddess and god for protection. Also, of course, you should wear a pentacle and perform protection spells and rituals. In Hellenism, that is the worship of Greek gods, you may ask protection to Zeus, Athena, or Apollo. In the Roman religion, you would call on the equivalent Roman deities, Jupiter, Minerva, Phoebus, etc. In Asatru, the Norse religion, you would typically call on Thor, Odin, Tyr, Troya, etc. But mind you, the gods will not be your nannies. They will not take care of you in the same way as Archangel Michael protects Christians. If you call on the gods and give them offerings, they will protect you, but the ideal thing in this religion is that you someday become a powerful witch or warrior yourself and protect yourself. You may also use protection runes such as Algis, Alhas, Awas, and Thurisas, among others that work for me like Kanaz. In Kemetism, that is the worship of Egyptian gods, of course, you could call on Bastet, although other gods like Horus did protect me. These gods gave me so much energy that I had to cover some of their images at night so they'd let me sleep. In some pagan religions, there's also called to the ancestors and the house spirit, or Agathodemon, to get protection. I won't mention other polytheist or pagan religions I didn't practice, but all of them have their protectors and you should research them. In shamanism, you would typically call on the eagle, although you may also ask for protection through the Great Spirit, Father Sun, Mother Earth, etc. Now, let's go on to theistic Satanism. Why would someone ask protection from the enemy of mankind? Well, in my opinion, this religion is the Judeo-Christian way of seeing the worship of what really are underworld deities. I believe that the one that people call Satan is really the equivalent of Hades or Pluto, the god of the underworld. You see, the earth, at least in other dimensions, is hollow and has subterranean places, some of them quite nice, that are ruled by deities. So you may call on Samael, which is the true name of Satan, and his couple Lilith as protectors. Although it's a path without moral rules, just as in other devotional paths, you should maintain faith and loyalty in your deity, and that loyalty must be embedded deeply into your mind. You have to be very convinced that you want to be with your chosen gods forever. And the same way as in Asatru, in this religion, Samael and Lilith will protect you if you call them, but they're not nannies. You're expected to become your own protector someday. In fact, you're expected to eventually become your own god. So, you may call on your higher self as a god. You may use rules, perform spells, rituals, etc. That white serpent you see here is Lilith. At least, that's how she appeared to me once in a dream. If you called Samael, I suggest you to also call on Lilith, because she balances the darkness of Samael. And how do you use your own power to protect yourself so you don't depend on any deities but yourself? Well, it's difficult to protect yourself alone without deities. Very difficult because you have to keep a deep faith in yourself, which most human beings don't have. You have to overcome self-sabotage and raise your self-esteem a lot. You can see a Buddha here as a symbol of the higher self emitting energy. I could have used other symbols, but I'm using a Buddha because I once dreamt of Krishna showing me the true self as a golden Buddha with my face. This higher self that every one of us is eternal, indivisible, purely personal, and it's made of the same substance, the same essence as the source of the universe, what we may call the Tao or Brahman. Having the right life, that includes being safe, depends on emitting the right energy from your true self, because the elementals and other divine beings that maintain this world behave accordingly to the energy you emit. So, your own higher self can behave as a protector god. You could meditate, for example, repeating affirmations like, I am always safe, or I am perfect security. When you repeat I am, your higher self vibrates. The rest of the affirmation qualifies that vibration. And when your vibration changes, your life also changes. But be careful, because especially the first 2 days, the mind rebels and you might get the opposite result. For example, if you meditate for protection, something bad may happen to you, but you have to go on with the practice. You gotta be persistent. You may also recur to many other methods to change the energy you want to emit from your higher self, like lighting candles, performing spells, rituals, etc. It all depends on what works for you. You could even go to a psychologist if that helps to change your mind. And a devotional path could also help, if it is done with the intention of improving your mind. There are also very important factors in spiritual development, which are the chakras, the nadis, which are the channels that interconnect the chakras, your genetic makeup, and the kundalini energy. I'm not going to talk about them on this video because it is mainly about protection, but you should take them into account. Okay, thanks for watching. Please like this video, subscribe, share, and be safe. If you ever had some good experience with spiritual protection, please share it in the comments.